Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be exploring an excerpt from an audiobook
Okay.
that's all about women and sexuality. You know, not just like the mechanics of it,
Right.
but the really deep stuff, how like spirituality and personal history
Right.
and societal pressures, how they all kind of tangle up to affect desire.
Yeah. It's a fascinating look at the factors that are often left out of the conversation.
Exactly. And I was reading this thing
Yeah.
about this ritual, and I was so intrigued
Yeah.
that the audiobook brought up. It's a ritual where you literally throw a rock in a lake to release negative sexual energy.
Oh, wow.
What do you think about that? Does that resonate with you at all?
You know, it reminds me of how deeply symbolic our relationship with sexuality is.
Yeah.
Like, even something as simple as throwing a rock can become a powerful act of letting go if we imbue it with the right intention, you know?
Right, right. And so right off the bat,
Yeah.
the audiobook confronts the heavy stuff, the shadow of abuse and trauma. They found that a third of the women that they surveyed had experienced sexual abuse.
Wow.
That number is, sadly, not surprising, but should make us think about the ripple effects of that trauma, right?
Absolutely.
Not just on individuals, but on our whole culture,
Absolutely.
when you think about it.
And, you know, what resonated with me is how the audiobook expands the definition of abuse.
Okay.
It's not always like, you know, overt sexual acts,
Right.
neglect, emotional manipulation,
Mm-hmm.
even just a chronic lack of affection.
Yeah.
These can all warp someone's relationship with pleasure later in life.
Yeah, because it undermines that fundamental feeling of like safety and worthiness.
Exactly.
That's so crucial for healthy desire.
Exactly. And so often, survivors internalize the blame.
Right.
Instead of recognizing the abuse for what it was,
Yeah.
they feel broken or wrong, like they're the problem.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. And then on top of that, the audiobook was saying that some survivors actually find excitement tangled up with their past trauma. It's almost like, you know, their wiring got crossed.
Right.
Associating like pain with arousal.
Yeah.
Have you encountered that in your work at all?
Yeah, it's a complex phenomenon.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's called trauma bonding. The brain, unfortunately,
Right.
can learn to link danger or pain with the neurochemical rush of arousal.
Wow.
It's not about like enjoying the trauma itself, but rather
Yeah.
the body seeking familiar pathways,
Right.
even if those pathways are harmful.
That makes it even harder to untangle like what healthy desire even feels like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It also makes it clear that healing isn't just about like individual willpower.
Mm-hmm.
It often requires professional support
Right.
to rewire those neural pathways
Right.
and build new associations.
Which leads perfectly into the next concept, which is pleasure anxiety.
Yes.
This idea that even without direct abuse, society kind of conditions us to fear genuine pleasure, especially for women. The audiobook lists overwork unrealistic beauty standards.
Ugh.
This constant pressure to be on.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
You know, Wilhelm Reich,
Mm-hmm.
who was a psychoanalyst, he argued that this anxiety stems from societal control mechanisms.
Okay.
You know, women's pleasure historically
Right.
has been seen as disruptive,
Yeah.
something to be managed or minimized.
And that legacy lingers, even if we don't realize it.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, think about it. Have you ever felt almost guilty
Yeah.
for enjoying something too much? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I shouldn't be this happy or relaxed.
Yes.
It's crazy how ingrained those messages can be.
It's a subtle but pervasive form of like self-policing.
Yeah.
We learn to dampen our own joy
Right.
to fit into these predefined boxes of what's acceptable for women.
So with all this baggage,
Right.
it's no wonder the audiobook says we develop all these defenses
Yeah.
to keep desire at bay.
Yes.
They call it armor, which can be literal, like gaining weight as a barrier,
Right.
or emotional, like building walls around your heart.
It's the psyche's way of protecting itself,
Mm-hmm.
even if those defenses ultimately cause more harm than good.
Right. And then there's plain old denial, acting like desire doesn't exist at all.
Right.
It's easier to pretend you don't want something
Yes.
than to face the pain of like unmet needs
Right.
or societal judgment.
It's a form of disconnection, both from oneself and the potential for intimacy.
Yeah.
What's particularly interesting is how this manifests differently. Like, some intellectualize your experiences,
Wow.
others numb out completely.
Mm-hmm.
But the underlying goal is the same. It's avoiding the perceived threat of desire.
The audiobook also talks about dissociation,
Yes.
mentally checking out during sex.
Right.
Like your body's there, but your mind is miles away.
Again, it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
A way to survive a situation that feels unsafe or triggering on some level.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that the body and mind aren't
Yeah.
always in sync
Yeah.
when it comes to desire.
And then there's the tough one, faking intimacy.
Oh,
Pretending to feel something you don't, to please a partner, or avoid confronting the issue. You
right.
know?
What struck me here is the audiobook's argument that this is ultimately toxic long-term.
Okay.
It's a betrayal of self and the relationship.
Yeah.
It creates this performance dynamic
Mm-hmm.
that prevents genuine intimacy from flourishing.
It perpetuates this idea that women's pleasure is secondary,
Right.
something to be faked or performed rather than authentically experienced and expressed.
And that lack in authenticity can be incredibly damaging.
Yeah.
It erodes trust and prevents both partners from experiencing the fullness of
Right.
what a truly intimate relationship can offer.
So given all these obstacles,
Yeah.
I was relieved when the audiobook shifted to healing and reclaiming desire.
Okay.
One of the most basic but powerful things they emphasize is partner support.
Yes,
You know, having someone who truly sees and cherishes you can be transformative, right?
absolutely. It's about creating a safe space where vulnerability and genuine expression are not just tolerated, but welcomed. Feeling understood and validated by a partner
Yeah.
can be incredibly healing, especially for those who've experienced trauma or invalidation in the past.
The audiobook also mentions spiritual practices, things like Buddhism or 12-step programs, as
Nice.
pathways to processing trauma and rebuilding self-worth.
What these practices often offer are tools for self-compassion and mindfulness.
Okay.
That ability to observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment
Yeah.
is essential for disentangling yourself from shame and reclaiming your inherent worthiness.
And then there's that rock ritual we mentioned earlier. This is where it gets a little more unconventional.
Okay.
But stick with me because it's fascinating.
Yeah.
The act of imbuing a rock with all your negative energy and then physically throwing it away.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a psychological power to that, right?
It's like giving those intangible feelings a concrete form and then
Yeah.
releasing them out into the universe.
It's almost like a physical manifestation of letting go.
Exactly. And rituals like this tap into something primal in us, the need for tangible action
Mm-hmm.
to process internal struggles.
So, okay, beyond symbolic gestures, the audiobook offers a more structured approach,
Okay.
the ISIS wheel.
Yes.
It's got 4 paths to rekindling desire:
Okay.
mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual.
I appreciate how this framework recognizes that desire isn't just a physical phenomenon.
Right.
It's an intricate interplay of mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah, it gives you more of a holistic roadmap, I guess, for exploration.
And importantly, it acknowledges that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
The path that resonates most with you might be different from someone else's.
Mm-hmm.
And that's perfectly okay.
But let's take the mental path as an example.
Okay.
One thing that jumped out at me is this idea of reframing negative self-talk. You
Yeah.
know, instead of focusing on what you don't like about your body,
Right.
you actively choose to appreciate its strength, its beauty, its capacity for pleasure.
A powerful shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of constantly criticizing ourselves,
Right.
we can choose to celebrate
Yeah.
the incredible vessel that carries us through life.
It's like rewriting the script in your head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And over time, those positive affirmations can become ingrained
Right.
and replace the negative self-talk that often sabotages our desire.
The emotional path really resonated with me too.
Okay.
The audiobook talks about cultivating emotional literacy, becoming aware of your feelings, even the uncomfortable ones, without judgment.
This aligns with what we know about mindfulness and emotional regulation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about suppressing or ignoring difficult emotions,
Right.
but rather learning to observe them
Yeah.
without getting swept away by them.
Right.
This allows you to make more conscious choices about how to respond.
So it's about creating space between the feeling and your reaction to it.
Exactly. And that space is where you find freedom and empowerment.
Then there's the physical path, which focuses on sensual exploration. And not just in a, sexual way, but really attuning to your senses.
Yes.
Enjoying a warm bath, the feel of soft fabrics, the taste of delicious food.
This is about embodiment, bringing awareness to the physical sensations that bring you joy and pleasure.
Right.
It's a way to reconnect with your body and rediscover its capacity for delight.
And by savoring those simple pleasures,
Yes.
you're essentially laying the groundwork for a richer, more embodied sexual experience as well.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about cultivating a sense of aliveness and appreciation for the physical world.
And finally, the spiritual path. This is where the audiobook talks about connecting with something larger than yourself,
Right.
whether it's nature, a higher power, or a sense of purpose.
This can be especially powerful for individuals who have experienced trauma or disconnection. It offers a sense of belonging and transcendence that can help heal old wounds and create space for new possibilities.
And that brings us to one of the most mind-blowing parts of this whole audiobook. The idea that sex can be a profound spiritual experience,
Yes.
not just a physical act. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's a concept that has been explored throughout history.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to see how it's being reclaimed and reinterpreted in modern times.
The audiobook calls this sacred union. And it really challenges the way we often compartmentalize sex and spirituality.
Right.
It's like, historically, these things were deeply intertwined.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the way, we lost that connection.
And that separation has come at a cost. It's led to a lot of shame and guilt around sexuality,
Right.
preventing many people from experiencing its full potential for connection, healing, and transcendence.
So how do we bridge that gap? How do we reclaim this sense of the sacred in our own lives?
Well, that's a journey that looks different for everyone. But I think the first step is simply being open to the possibility,
Okay.
to allow ourselves to see sex as more than just a physical act, to recognize its potential for depth, connection, and even spiritual awakening.
And that's where things get really interesting. Because the audiobook goes on to explore this idea through a fascinating historical lens. The world of ancient gods and goddesses, where sexuality and spirituality were seamlessly interwoven.
Right.
Are you ready to time travel? Let's delve into the world of ancient myths and rituals and see what wisdom they hold for us today.
Let's do it. All right, so picture this. We're talking ancient civilizations
Okay.
where creation myths often involved gods and goddesses whose, shall we say, enthusiastic procreation resulted in, well, the cosmos as we know it.
It's like the Big Bang, but way more fun.
Exactly. And it highlights a key difference between then and now.
Okay.
These deities weren't just powerful,
Right.
they were unabashedly sensual. Their pleasure was seen as a creative force,
Okay.
not something to be ashamed of.
Yeah, it's a far cry from the, sex-negative messaging a lot of us grew up with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it ties into the concept of sacred marriage, which
Wow.
was central to so many ancient belief systems.
Yeah.
The union of masculine and feminine energies, often embodied by specific god and goddess pairings,
Right.
was seen as the source of all creation.
Do you think people back then saw their own relationships as, a reflection of that divine union?
Yeah.
Like they could tap into that same creative energy?
The idea of as above, so below was prevalent.
Okay.
The gods and goddesses weren't just distant figures.
Right.
They were archetypes that humans could aspire to embody.
Okay.
And that included their vibrant,
Yeah.
powerful sexuality.
Okay, so I gotta ask, which divine couples were really bringing the heat, mythologically speaking? The audiobook mentioned Ishtar and Tammuz in Mesopotamia.
Right. They were a power couple
Okay.
associated with fertility, passion, and even the cycle of death and rebirth. Their stories are full of imagery that would make even the most liberal modern reader blush.
That makes me wonder, was this concept of a powerful, sensual goddess common across cultures?
Absolutely. Think of Shakti and Shiva in Hinduism. Shakti embodies the feminine energy of the universe. Dynamic, creative, powerful.
Right.
And her union with Shiva, the masculine principle,
Right.
is seen as the cosmic dance that gives birth to everything.
Wow. That imagery is so beautiful, like this cosmic dance of creation.
And it highlights something crucial
Yeah.
in these traditions. Sex wasn't just about procreation or personal gratification.
Okay.
It was deeply connected to the life force that animated the entire universe.
Wow.
It was spiritual, even sacred.
So were there rituals or practices that helped people tap into that sacred energy?
The audiobook talks about how ancient societies often celebrated sexuality through festivals and rituals, where eroticism and spirituality were intertwined.
Okay.
These weren't hush-hush, shameful affairs.
Right.
They were vibrant expressions of life force,
Yeah.
the cyclical nature of creation and destruction.
It's like they were honoring that energy instead of trying to repress it.
Exactly. There's a vibrancy and joyfulness to these ancient depictions of sexuality that's really striking. And it's worth noting that female deities often held a particularly revered position.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, think of goddesses like Inanna,
Okay.
the Sumerian goddess of love and war. She was both fierce and sensual, a force to be reckoned with.
It's such a different image of womanhood than what we often see in more patriarchal societies.
Right. It challenges the idea that female sexuality is something to be controlled or subdued.
Right.
These goddesses were powerful,
Yeah.
independent, and unapologetic about their desires. They were creators,
Right.
not just objects of desire.
So we've got these powerful gods and goddesses, but
Right.
what about everyday people?
Yeah.
Did they leave behind any glimpses into how they experience this connection between sex and spirituality?
The audiobook highlights a fragment of an ancient Sumerian love poem,
Okay.
believed to be spoken by Inanna to her lover Dumuzi.
Okay.
It's incredibly sensual and evocative, even by today's standards.
Ooh, do tell. What does it say?
Here's the line that stuck with me.
Okay.
He is sprouted, he is virgin, he is lettuce planted by the water.
Oh,
He is the one my womb loves best.
lettuce planted by the water. That's unexpectedly earthy and sensual for a goddess, isn't it?
Right, and that's the beauty of these ancient texts.
Yeah.
They don't shy away from the physicality of desire. They celebrate it as an expression of the life force that flows through all beings.
Right.
It's a reminder that spirituality isn't just about lofty ideals.
Right.
It's also about embracing the embodied experience of being human.
I love that, finding the divine in the everyday, the sensual.
Right.
It makes those ancient cultures feel so much more relatable. Like, we're not so different after all.
Exactly. It speaks to the universality of human experience.
Yeah.
The longing for connection, the joy of a sensual pleasure, the desire to merge with another.
Okay, so we've time traveled back to the ancient world and explored this fascinating fusion of sex and spirituality. But now let's fast forward to the present day.
Oh.
Does the audiobook talk about how this concept of sacred union shows up in modern lives?
It does. And it's incredibly inspiring to see how these ancient ideas are being reclaimed and reinterpreted.
So it's not just an artifact of the past.
Yeah,
There are people who are actually living this out.
absolutely.
Oh, wow.
The audiobook shares stories of modern women
Okay.
who describe sex as a pathway to the divine, a way to connect with a higher power,
Okay.
or to experience a profound sense of oneness and transcendence
Wow.
with their partner.
That's amazing. So what are some of the common threads in these modern experiences of sacred union? What makes sex feel sacred or spiritual for them?
Well, a key element seems to be the quality of attention.
Okay.
It's about being fully present in the moment, both with yourself and with your partner.
Right.
Really seeing, feeling, and honoring each other.
So it's not just about the physical act itself.
Exactly. It's about the intention you bring to the experience.
Yeah.
The depth of connection, the willingness to be vulnerable and open.
It sounds like a kind of mindfulness practice, but
Right.
applied to intimacy.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And the audiobook talks about how this mindful attention manifests through touch, eye contact, the way a partner listens and responds to your needs.
It's like you feel truly seen and cherished, not just physically,
right.
but on a deeper level.
Exactly. And that feeling of safety and trust
Right.
is essential for sacred union to occur. You have to feel comfortable enough to let go of defenses, to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
to surrender to the experience without fear or judgment.
Which, let's be honest,
Right.
can be really challenging, especially for women who've been conditioned to be guarded and cautious about their sexuality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage to break free from those ingrained patterns and allow yourself to fully experience pleasure and connection without holding back.
And the audiobook emphasizes that communication is key too, right? Being honest with yourself and your partner about what you desire, what feels good, what doesn't.
That open dialogue creates a space for exploration and intimacy to truly flourish.
Right.
When both partners feel safe to express their needs and desires, it deepens the connection on all levels.
I imagine there's also an element of playfulness and joy.
Oh, absolutely.
in sacred union.
It's about letting go of the need to perform
Right.
or achieve a specific outcome
Yeah.
and just allowing yourself to be present in the moment, to laugh,
Right.
to connect, to explore together.
It's about rediscovering that childlike sense of wonder and delight
Yeah.
that we often lose touch with as adults, wouldn't you say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that playful energy can be incredibly transformative. Take the pressure off
Yeah.
and allow you to simply enjoy the experience, to be curious, to discover new things about yourself and your partner.
So it seems like sacred union is about so much more than just having good sex. It's about connecting with yourself, with your partner, and with something larger than yourself, all at the same time.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's a holistic experience that integrates all aspects of our being. The physical, the emotional, the spiritual. And when those elements come together in harmony, it can be incredibly transformative.
Okay, so let's say someone listening is totally intrigued by this idea of sacred union,
Yeah.
but they have no idea where to even start.
Okay.
Does the audiobook offer any guidance?
It does.
Okay.
And one of the simplest but most powerful suggestions is to reconnect with your own body
Okay.
through sensual exploration.
So not necessarily jumping straight into partnered sex,
Right.
but rather taking time to savor those everyday pleasures that make you feel good in your own skin.
Exactly. Taking a warm bath, indulging in a massage,
Right.
listening to music that moves you, savoring the taste of delicious food.
Okay.
It's about awakening your senses and rediscovering the pleasure that your body is capable of experiencing.
It's like giving yourself permission to enjoy those simple things.
Yes.
Without judgment or guilt.
And that's crucial.
Right.
Because when you start to appreciate your body and its capacity for pleasure,
Yeah.
it becomes easier to open up to intimacy and connection with another.
The audiobook also talks about mindfulness, right?
Yes.
Bringing your awareness to the present moment, both during sex and in everyday life.
Mindfulness helps you tune into your body's sensations, your emotions,
Right.
and the subtle cues that your partner is giving you.
Yeah.
It allows you to be more fully present and engaged in the experience,
Right.
which can deepen the connection and enhance pleasure.
It's like you're not just going through the motions. You're
Yeah.
really savoring the experience, both physically and emotionally.
And there's also this beautiful practice of gratitude
Oh, yeah.
that the audiobook suggests cultivating, appreciating your partner, your
Right.
body, and the opportunity to experience pleasure and connection.
Gratitude is so powerful. It can really shift your whole perspective and open you up to a deeper level of appreciation.
Absolutely.
But what about those who have a lot of baggage around sex? Past hurts, negative messages.
Right.
How do they begin to, unravel all that?
The audiobook acknowledges that sometimes you have to unpack those past experiences, heal old wounds,
Yeah.
and work through any shame or guilt that you might be carrying.
Right.
That might involve therapy, journaling, spiritual practices, or other forms of self-exploration.
It's about dismantling those old scripts and creating a new story for yourself.
Right.
One that embraces pleasure.
Yes.
And celebrates your sexuality as a sacred and powerful force.
And that leads us to a really exciting concept that the audiobook explores.
Okay.
The idea of writing your own personal manifesto for sexual desire.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
It sounds empowering.
It is. It's about taking everything you've learned and distilling it into a clear vision for what you want your sexual experience to be. It's not just about absorbing information. It's about taking action,
Yeah.
about making conscious choices
Right.
that align with your desires and values.
So it's like a roadmap for creating a more fulfilling and authentic sexual experience.
Exactly. And the beauty of it
Yeah.
is that it's a living document.
Right.
It can evolve and change as you do, reflecting your growth and exploration along the way.
There's that theme of ongoing journey again.
Right.
It's a good reminder that this isn't about reaching some final destination,
Yeah.
but about continually learning, growing, and expanding your capacity for pleasure and connection.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, the audiobook provides some great starting points.
Okay.
It actually compiled a whole list of desires that women shared,
Okay.
from the simple and sensual to the adventurous and playful.
Wow.
It's like a menu of possibilities
Yeah.
that spark your imagination.
So as you're listening to this, think about what you would put in your manifesto. What does your ideal sexual experience look like? What needs to shift internally or externally to make that a reality?
It's about reclaiming your agency,
Yeah.
saying this is what I desire,
Right.
and taking steps to make it happen.
And remember, there's no right or wrong answer.
Absolutely.
What feels good for one person
Right.
might not resonate with another, and that's perfectly okay. This is your personal journey.
Exactly. Embrace your uniqueness, experiment, be open to new possibilities.
And maybe dust off that journal and start writing.
Exactly.
Well, I feel like we've covered so much ground today, but in the best way possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
What stands out to you as the most important takeaway for our listeners?
For me, it's the reminder that desire is so much more complex and multifaceted
Right.
than we often give it credit for.
Yeah.
It's shaped by our personal history, societal conditioning, and even our spiritual beliefs.
Right.
But most importantly,
Yeah.
it's something we have the power to reclaim and redefine.
It's not something that just happens to us. We have agency.
Exactly. And that's incredibly empowering.
Right.
It means we're not victims of our circumstances.
Yeah.
We can choose to heal, to grow,
Yeah.
and to create sexual experiences that feel authentic and fulfilling.
And that journey doesn't end at a certain age
Right.
or when you reach a particular relationship milestone.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing exploration.
Absolutely. Our sexuality is a vital part of who we are throughout our lives.
Yeah.
And it's never too late to explore,
Right.
to learn, to grow,
Mm-hmm.
and to experience pleasure and connection in new and exciting ways.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yes.
I want to leave our listeners with a sense of hope and possibility. Remember, this conversation is just a starting point.
Right.
The real work, the real magic
Yeah.
happens when you take these ideas and apply them to your own life.
So go forth.
Yes.
Explore your desires,
Mm-hmm.
write your manifesto, and embrace the incredible journey of sexual self-discovery.
And remember, you are worthy of pleasure.
Yes.
You are capable of deep connection.
Absolutely.
And you have the power to create a sexual experience that truly reflects who you are.
It's been a joy diving deep with you all today.
Until next time. So much of what we've discussed today comes back to this idea of like empowerment,
Right.
you know, taking ownership of your experience.
Yes.
And you're already ahead of the game
Mhm.
because you've engaged with this audiobook.
Right.
What are some of the things that resonated most with you so far?
Oh, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
How this seemingly simple topic,
Yeah.
sexual desire,
Right.
can open up so many layers of personal and societal exploration.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And speaking of layers,
Yeah.
the audiobook doesn't stop at just laying out the problem, right? It encourages us to actually do something
Yes.
with this newfound knowledge. You know, remember that part where it talks about writing your own personal manifesto? Oh, yes.
For sexual desire.
It's such a brilliant exercise.
Yeah.
It's like taking all those insights,
Right.
the historical context, the psychological complexities, the personal stories,
Yeah.
and using them to create a vision
Right.
for what you want your sexual experience to be.
Yeah. It's not just about absorbing information.
Right.
It's about applying it to your life,
Exactly.
making conscious choices
Yes.
that align with your values and desires.
And that manifesto can be incredibly empowering.
Right.
It's about clarifying your needs, communicating them to your partner, and
Yeah.
co-creating a shared vision for your relationship.
Yeah, it's almost like a roadmap
Yes.
for a more fulfilling and authentic sexual experience.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is that it's a living document.
Right.
It can evolve as you do,
Yeah.
reflecting your growth and exploration along the way.
You know, there's that theme of the ongoing journey again.
Right.
It's a good reminder that this isn't about reaching some final destination, you know?
It's about continually learning, growing,
Yes.
and expanding your capacity for pleasure and connection.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned,
Yeah.
the audiobook provides some great starting points.
Okay.
It actually compiled a whole list of desires that women shared,
Okay.
from the simple and sensual to the adventurous and playful.
Right.
It's like a menu of possibilities
Okay.
to spark your imagination.
So as you're listening to this, think about what you would put in your manifesto.
Right.
What does your ideal sexual experience look like?
Yes.
What needs to shift, internally or externally, to make that a reality?
It's about reclaiming your agency,
Right.
saying this is what I desire, and taking steps to make it happen.
And remember, there's no right or wrong answer here.
Absolutely.
What feels good for one person
Yeah.
might not resonate with another.
Exactly.
And that's perfectly okay. This is your personal journey.
Exactly. Embrace your uniqueness,
Yeah.
experiment, be open to new possibilities.
And maybe dust off that journal and start writing.
Exactly.
Well, I feel like we've covered so much ground today, but in a good way, you know?
Yes.
What stands out to you as like the most important takeaway for our listeners?
For me, it's the reminder that desire is so much more complex and multifaceted than we often give it credit for.
Right, right.
It's shaped by our personal history,
Yeah.
societal conditioning, and even our spiritual beliefs.
Right. But most importantly,
Yeah.
it's something we have the power to reclaim and redefine.
It's not something that just happens to us.
Right. We have agency.
Exactly. And that's incredibly empowering.
Right.
It means we're not victims of our circumstances.
Yeah.
We can choose to heal, to grow,
Yeah.
and to create sexual experiences that feel authentic and fulfilling.
And that journey doesn't end at a certain age
Yeah.
or when you reach a particular relationship milestone.
Right.
It's an ongoing exploration.
Absolutely. Our sexuality is a vital part of who we are
Yeah.
throughout our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never too late to explore,
Right.
to learn, to
Yeah.
grow,
Mm-hmm.
and to experience pleasure and connection in new and exciting ways.
I love that.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave our listeners with a sense of hope and possibility.
Yes.
Remember, this conversation is just a starting point.
Right.
The real work, the real magic
Yeah.
happens when you take these ideas and apply them to your own life.
So go forth.
Yes.
Explore your desires, write your manifesto,
Yeah.
and embrace the incredible journey of sexual self-discovery.
And remember, you are worthy of pleasure, you are capable of deep connection,
Yes.
and you have the power to create a sexual experience that truly reflects who you are.
It's been a joy diving deep with you all today.
Until next time.